What's up everyone, John Brenja from Techno Buffalo here with the full review for you of the Blackberry Z10. Is this guy the savior that BlackBerry's hoping? I've been using the device for the better part of 2 weeks to really get to know a new operating system. I didn't feel that just a few days is going to give it a fair shot and give me a chance to get to know all the nuances and sort of the little quirks of using a brand new platform. So let's go ahead and put it through its paces, see if this should be the phone that you keep for the next 2 years. Alright, so here is the Blackberry Z10. I'm going to break this review into a few parts. I'm going to talk about the pros, I'm going to talk about the cons, and I'm going to give it a final score. So let's go ahead and start with the specs to remind you what this guy packs, because it's an all-new phone from an all-new company. I can play a game at home and count the amount of times I say RIM instead of Blackberry. So the screen here is a pretty nice 4.2-inch screen, the resolution of 1280 by 768, which gives it a 355 ppi. Being powered by a 1.5 gigahertz TI OMAP 4470, that's a Snapdragon chip. It's got 2 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs of internal storage, expandable with micro SD. 8 megapixel shooter living right there on the back, and a 2 megapixel one living on the opposite side on the front. Wi-Fi 802.11 BGNN, Bluetooth 4.0, NFC. Battery is a very oddly shaped 1800 milliamp hour. It's got all the usual sensors you'd expect: accelerometer, gyroscope, magnetometer, and proximity. Alright, so first let's start with call quality, and I should say this is an unlocked unit not released by a carrier on use with AT&T's LTE network. Call quality was actually very good, about on par with any other iOS or Android phone I've tested. Signal strength is actually very good as well, and especially impressive considering it's an unlocked phone that has not been tuned for the carrier's network. Alright, so let's talk about the pros of Blackberry 10. This is a review that I think you get only from using a phone for 2 weeks, not sort of rushing to get something up after a few days. Alright, so let's talk about build quality. Build quality is actually really impressive here on the Z10. Despite its plastic back, actually, it's one of the best removable back phones that I've seen. You really don't feel sort of any sort of flimsy plastic like you do on some other phones. And I'd say that the build quality actually rivals HTC, which I think has some of the best in the industry. You almost don't even realize that this is a removable back. So hats off to BlackBerry for that. There's a lot to really like about this operating system. The first is the home swipe. I will say this took a lot of getting used to. So whenever you're in an application or doing something and you want to get home, instead of having a physical home button, you actually just swipe on up. And that one took probably about 6 days to actually become second nature. I found myself looking for a home button, You almost have to relearn everything you thought about with phones, but I really do like it. BlackBerry Peek is really cool too. Essentially what you can do is you can swipe up and you can see if you have any notifications right there on the left, and you can peek on in to see what you've got in your mailbox. It's a pretty neat little trick. And while I'm here, BlackBerry Hub is a unifying inbox for all BlackBerry devices, and it works really well. Emails come in just extremely fast. The operating system is very, very fluid as well. I found with previous BlackBerry OSs it sounded to be a little bit laggy. Not so at all. The dual-core processor, 2 gigs of RAM, this thing absolutely flies. And that's true with really doing anything, whether you're opening applications or playing games. It's extremely fast. BlackBerry spent a lot of time and attention to detail here, and you see it on a lot of little things. For example, when you're unlocking the phone, swiping up, you almost get sort of a cool shadow effect. Just little things that I really appreciated here as well. I also like the core applications. BlackBerry World, for example, looks really nice. Looks like a modern app store as opposed to something that was sort of tacked on to an outdated operating system. The other applications that you use probably most often, Twitter, Foursquare, Facebook, and LinkedIn, all look almost identical to their iOS and Android counterparts and behave just the same. To refresh, you just pull on down. So very simple there. One of the features that I really like as well, and I talked about this in a separate video, is in the camera. So the camera button, you can open it up either via a shortcut on the home screen or as a dedicated sort of soft hard button down here, which I know is kind of an oxymoron, but they're always down there when you're on the home screen. Is the time shift feature. It's really cool, and despite being in an Android phone, it's really awesome and kind of neat party trick. When people ask what I think about the Z10, it's often the first thing that I show them. So one of the things BlackBerry is really touting here is super awesome is their new keyboard. So let me go ahead and show you what that looks like. So first, the location of the frets, and those are those gray lines, is actually really well placed. And the keyboard learns very quickly. What's not being talked about, surprisingly, with the Z10 is actually underneath the screen there's a heat sensor. So it can learn where your fingers hit. So if you always kind of hit the O key when you mean to hit the P key, it'll learn that, and it'll sort of move that contact point over a little bit. And it works very well, and it learns very quickly what you're typing. It wasn't overly accurate at first, but the more I used the phone, the better it got. So even if you just type this, corrects it for you, is A. And you notice that words start appearing down here, and some of the cool things you can do is you can swipe that right up, and you can see that your sentences start to be completed, so there's actually very little typing. It's not like a swipe keyboard where you can sort of drag your finger all around. You actually have to see the words and swipe it up to the screen. And speaking of swiping, BlackBerry is not using a Gorilla Glass screen here, and I'm not sure what the screen is made of, but oftentimes if your fingers are a little bit dry, for example, they don't swipe on the screen as often as other phone. Just a little bit of an odd quirk. Overall, this is probably the best keyboard that I've ever used on an all touchscreen phone. I've used a lot of keyboards on all touchscreen phones. And if you want to hide the keyboard in any application, just go ahead and hold down the space button and it will go ahead and get rid of it. And to go back to home, as I mentioned, you just go ahead and swipe up. The next thing that BlackBerry does right, not surprising, is email. They do this right. They've always done this right, and it's no surprise here that it works absolutely awesome on the Z10. Emails come in quicker on my phone than they do on my desktop. It is absolutely incredibly fast. If you aren't using a BlackBerry Exchange server, no special BlackBerry data plan is needed here anymore. I know there's been some conflicting reports, but I'm using the same data plan I use in iOS or Android without any problems, and I've got the little BlackBerry notification up there to let me know that things are working. The browser, we've got a modern browser here finally, and also it brings a bit of a surprise. Flash is enabled on the device. You can go ahead and turn it on or turn it off depending on what websites you are using, and it works just like Flash used to on Android phones. The other cool thing we've got here is multitasking. You can see that sort of in these panes, and it shows you what's open. So instead of just being a shrunken down version of the app, it actually shows you useful information. So for example, here on phone calls, I can see what my recent calls are, and it shows you sort of important information as you go through. So you can see it here with BlackBerry World, and if the application has something important to show you, it'll show it right there. It's kind of neat. I do miss, though, on old QNX devices, and I'm looking at Playbook. To close applications, you could swipe them off the screen. You got to hit a little X down there. I found that to be a little bit on the annoying side. Multitasking, it works very well. I thought I'd be annoyed that I could see only 4 panels here, but actually it became pretty second nature just to scroll down and hop on over to the next one. There's been some reports about battery life being absolutely awful. It's an 1800 milliamp hour battery, and it's not all that big, but it has worked very well. I'm a pretty hard user on my phone with a few hours of phone calls, lots of browsing, Facebooking, Twitter, picture uploads and stuff. I'm very easily able to get through a full day, and that's with 2 emails coming in and everything, so I wouldn't worry all that much about battery life despite being a very small 1800 milliamp hour battery. Other things I love that visual voicemail is built in. Some of the applications that I use a lot are missing, like WhatsApp and Google Maps, for example, but you can actually sideload Android apps. Not going to get into too big a detail on how to do that. There'll be a link down below. If you're watching this video on Techno Buffalo, it'll be embedded on how to sideload certain Android apps on the screen. Other niceties here are with BBM. Video chat works very well, on par with anything I've seen on Android or iOS. And screen sharing works as advertised. It's really a novel feature. I haven't found many uses for it, but it does work in pictures and video. You can show pretty much everything. It's very neat. BlackBerry really has grown on me, actually. I used to be a dedicated BlackBerry user before 2007 when the iPhone hit and I switched back and forth between Android and Windows Phone. There's a lot to like here with the Blackberry Z10 and Blackberry 10. You can tell that they spent a lot of time honing this because they had to, but all is not perfect. Let me go ahead and talk about some of the cons. So I started this video by talking about the build quality. I'm going to go back to the builds here. The chins, sort of what I've affectionately called them, on the top and bottom of the phone are much larger than you see on any other phones. I'm sure it's where the antennas are located, but it almost feels like I've got a big plasticky case on the phone. I would have loved to have seen those smaller. You've got plenty of bezel here where the BlackBerry logo is to sort of start your swipe up or your swipe down motions on the top. So I'm not sure why that chin is there. I would have liked to have seen even a little bit thicker and have that chin removed. There are a lot of OS quirks here as well, as you'd expect from a brand new operating system. For example, for the first week I used the phone, I couldn't add a new calendar event. It would constantly crash on me, then just suddenly fixed itself. Something to sort of keep in mind. The camera, while the time shift feature is kind of neat, took really uninspiring, unimpressive pictures. I would have expected more from the sensor. The app selection here, I talked about BlackBerry App World looking great. The app selection here is not so good. Now, they promised a ton of them are going to be coming, but for right now, they're not here. And that's a big question mark. Are developers going to not only port their apps, but are they going to support the applications in the future? So certainly that is yet to be seen. With the app selection, they're definitely something to consider if you're looking to pick up this phone, because right now they are not there. Perhaps by the time these phones hit US carriers next month or later, the application support will be a little bit better. Something else that BlackBerry has added here is voice controls. You can access it by either hitting the voice control button or the middle button right there on the right, and it's sort of a Siri, Google search-esque functionality, and it is not overly good. It does some stuff, and I'll show you here what it does. So you can send a text, email, BBM message, call a contact, search internet, or schedule an appointment, or take notes. So I'll go ahead and do a quick search here. Show me reviews of the BlackBerry Z10.
Searching the internet for show me reviews of the BlackBerry Z10.
So you can see it's not the most elegant of voices, not the most elegant of searching. It is functional and it will send text and such, but when you compare it to what you get with Siri and Google Search, it just doesn't compare. One of the other odd quirks I found is when you make a phone call when connected to Bluetooth. So if you are in your car and your phone is locked and sitting next to you and you make a call, the screen is going to light up and unlock. When you end a call, it is going to stay lit up and not go back to a locked state. Every other phone I've pretty much ever tested has locked and turned off the screen. So if you're not aware of it, the phone's in your pocket, you're going to burn out your battery very quickly. The screen's going to stay on until your timeout limit is set, so whatever you've got that set for. It's sort of a very odd quirk with the OS, and certainly something I'd expect to be fixed very, very soon. Another thing that's quite disappointing here is Maps. It is awful. The points of interest don't work very well, and the whole Maps itself is just not overly elegant. So bear that in mind if you're looking to pick up a Z10. Turn by turn, though, is actually very good, so sort of very similar to what we saw with Apple Maps. The good news, though, if you follow some easy steps, you can definitely get Google Maps up on your phone and everything that comes with Google Maps, which should make your life a little bit easier. And speaking of applications, I miss Instagram. I use it quite a bit on any other device, and Instagram is not here, and BlackBerry has not really said when it's going to be coming, or even if it's going to be coming. So there are a lot of pros and a lot of cons with the BlackBerry Z10. There's much more that I could have talked about, but I wanted to give you guys sort of the highlights of each. So what's the final score of the BlackBerry Z10? It gets a very solid 8. It's a well-built device with a really elegant operating system. The big question here, though, is it better than anything else that's out there? When you're trying to catch the competition, you can't just run as fast as them. You got to run faster to make sure you can eventually catch up. And I'm not sure the BlackBerry is running faster. Are they running at the same pace as iOS and Android? That's debatable, but I would say they probably are. But to catch up in that huge market share they've lost over the years, I'm just not sure the BlackBerry 10 is there yet. Perhaps when we get some more choices, when the Q10 is out, and other screen sizes are released, they may have that value add. But for those of you that use a lot of applications, you want to play a lot of games, it's going to be tough to recommend the Q10. If email is your thing and you want a great keyboard, this has always been BlackBerry's bread and butter. This is going to be a great phone to pick up. It doesn't do anything poorly by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just not sure it does anything better than the competition. So take that advice for what you will, but it is a very solid phone. I'm going to continue to use it as my daily driver for another few weeks. I'd love to hear what you guys think of the BlackBerry Z10. Are you going to pick it up when it comes to your carrier? Are you excited, not excited? Do you think that BlackBerry is going to have a future? I want to hear what you have to say. Leave your comments down below. And of course, go to technobuffalo.com to get the full written review. If you're watching this on YouTube, the link will be right down below. For now, I'm John Rettinger from Techno Buffalo, and I'll see you guys in the next video.